My name's Cody Bates. I was born in Calgary, Alberta. I had different father figures coming in and out of my life. By the age of 4, I had called 3 different men in my life dad. I learned at a very young age that loving somebody was dangerous, and if you did it, you're gonna get hurt. At 12 years old, I tried drugs for my first time. When I smoked my first joint, I got way more than I bargained for. What happened was I was on my way to school, I smoked this joint, and my intentions with this weed was to be the cool kid on the playground for once. I was gonna be the cool kid, and people are gonna know I was high and I was gonna be sweet. And I got to school, and the craziest thing happened when I was high, and that's I didn't care what anybody thought of me. I was, for once in my life, I was okay to be in my own skin. For once in my life, that massive void that was inside of me was filled to the brim. And I decided in that moment that I was gonna chase that feeling forever. I started getting in trouble, crime, at a very young age, started going to jail when I was about 15. I was serving time, and I met guys in there that were gang members. And these guys treated me good. Like, it was, for the first time in my life, I wasn't getting picked on, I wasn't getting bullied, I was getting shown love. So it was a very perverse love, but it was the first kind of feeling of family I ever had. And I decided I would chase that, and it was the first time that I wasn't on drugs and I felt complete. So I decided I would chase that. So I remember getting out of prison, and all the things that come along with gang life followed me getting out of prison. So the level of criminal activity just went through the roof. Like, I started getting involved in narcotic trafficking. I started getting involved in home invasions, kidnappings, all kinds of stuff. And it was just all because, I loved being around these guys. I loved the respect it came with. I loved the women. I loved the cocaine. I loved just every single form of escape I could possibly get in my hands on. I fell in love with, and everything changed for me on June 6, 2006. And my friend and I took the life of my rival in a drug turf war, and I got charged with first-degree murder about a year and a half later. When I got charged with homicide, my heart just went black. I was looking at 25 years, sitting in a prison cell, sitting in maximum security, sitting around the worst, most violent, most demonic individuals you could ever imagine, and everybody just needed to prove themselves to everybody else. So it was just dangerous. And for me, 22 years old, sitting in a maximum security prison, I needed to destroy any weakness I had. So, and I was a gang member, so any calls for violence, I was always the first to volunteer. And when I went into a cell with somebody, it was always coupled with a massive statement, and that was that I wanted to move up within the ranks of the gang. Within about 6 months, I was the highest ranking member in the institution. We were going to war with one of the largest prison gangs in the province, and all the people, all the acts of violence that were happening, all the stabbings, all the beatings, everything, because I was the guy in charge, it all kind of fell on my shoulders. So I found myself in solitary confinement, 23-hour lockdown, super max, whatever you want to call it, by myself. And in a really perverse sense, I thought I arrived. I was sitting in a cell by myself. I was super max. I was, everybody feared me, respected me, and everything I ever thought I ever wanted, I had in 23-hour lockdown. And I was just dying inside. I was just so empty and so desperate for just to have that void filled inside of me. Yeah, I ended up getting released about 6.5 years later. And when I went back out, I went head into criminality with a maximum security mentality. And when I went into it, I went into it head first, and I went in strong. And I started building a trafficking operation, a cocaine dial-a-dope operation in South Calgary. And I would go out and I would meet people at the bars, parties, all that, and I would get them put on phones. And as soon as I had 120 people on that phone, I would hire 2 shift workers to work that phone, and then I would start building another one, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. And it got to a point just where I had thousands of customers, and I was making more money than I'd ever seen, and but it wasn't about the money for me. It was strictly about the escape. That's the only reason why I was selling drugs, is because it came with cocaine, and I sold it in large quantities because that means I never ran out, so I'd never have to come down. So as I dived further and further into that darkness, I chased everything that I thought again would fill that void inside me. And that was that was money, that was drugs, that was women, that was parties, that was friends, and I just chased all that, and I had all that with that lifestyle. And again, just leaving me feeling empty inside. The more I went into it, the more the dope dialed back on me, and the more the party came to an end. As the party started to come to an end, I was going for about 3 years since I started using again, and when I was going, I never stopped. Like it got to a point where I was only sleeping every 6 days. I used to enjoy going to parties and stuff like that. I never left my house. I just sat there staring at my surveillance cameras for days on end. People coming in with, to give me the money that my phones brought in, and then I would give them more drugs that would leave, and then I would just sit there staring at these cameras. I just lost all my ability to see the beauty in life. I didn't care about going to parties. I didn't care about seeing old friends. I didn't care about good food. I didn't care about gorgeous weather. I didn't care about girls anymore. The only thing that did anything for me neurologically was the cocaine I was doing. And my health problems started getting out of control. I was doing about $1,500 of cocaine a day. And just built up just a massive tolerance to the drug. I needed it more and more and more and more. And every time I came down, it was just all the pain and all the torment of the world would just come crashing down on me. Like as soon as my mind would start to clear a little bit from the drugs I was polluting it with, all the wreckage that I had been doing to it would be very prevalent. And I would be just a mess until I got high again. So I just never came down. I just kept diving further and further into that. I started having heart attacks on the regular. I started dropping. My heart stopped 3 times where I had to be resuscitated by ambulance, EMS. And I remember being at a point where there was no way out except for death. But death wouldn't take me. I died over and over and over again, heart attack after overdose, and just death wouldn't take me. And I remember being told I was gonna die, and the relief that came with that, that it was finally gonna be over soon. Like I wanted to die. I tried countless different methods to kill myself. I filled in needles full of bleach, put them into my veins. I sat in a car with a tube going into the window with exhaust. I did that for an hour and a half. I was Googling. It said it should be dead in 20 minutes. It wasn't dead. I wanted to die in every sense of the word, and death wouldn't take me. And I remember when I got told I was gonna die, it was just a wave of relief washing over me. One day I'm sitting in my house, and this girl comes in, and she's showing me these paintings, and these paintings are painted by a girl named Akiana Krameric, and this girl is 7 years old, and she says that Jesus Christ taught her to paint. And she's been on the Oprah show. Her paintings sell for millions of dollars a pop. I remember looking at these paintings, and I don't know what it was, but something clicked when I was looking. There was this one portrait, specifically, it's called The Prince of Peace, and it was a painting of Jesus. And I remember looking at this painting, and it was a painting by a 7-year-old. And for the first time in my life, I realized who Jesus was. I always thought he was just a character in the Bible, or, I'd never been to church or anything like that. I was looking at this picture, and I remember looking at that painting and believing that was God. But in order for me to have any relationship with him, I would have to get clean.
I would have to get sober. I would have to separate myself from my friends. I would have to quit selling drugs. I would have to do, me. It would have to be me to do everything. And so it was, so not for 1 second did it cross my mind that maybe, he could do anything for me. It was like, I just thought it was cool that God was real. and then I survived for another 5 months after I got told I was gonna die. I remember one physician telling me that the sheer amount of cocaine I was doing is what was keeping my heart beating. On January 4th, 2017, I was taking my fate. I was taking my fate out of the hands of whoever was in charge. I was gonna take my life that day. And as I'm cutting my wrists, I'm thinking about my family, thinking about my life, and not to try and stop myself, but because I was so filled with shame and guilt and hurt and pain and just years of treachery just weighing down on my shoulders, that every time I thought of the people that I loved, it just gave me that energy to get that knife cut, to get that knife even deeper. And I remember just getting the knife deep into my wrist, and it went deep in, and I stopped for a second, and I knew it was deep enough, and then I knew that all I had to do was pull it back, and it was all gonna be over. And as I'm just about to pull it back, all of a sudden, I started feeling things I have never felt in my entire life. First of all, it was like everything fell off my shoulders in a split second, and I started being filled with benevolence, with joy, with peace, with things I've never felt before in my entire life. And like, not just a little bit, but like bursting out of me. And as I'm sitting there heaving, I'm hearing the words, it's over, your suffering's come to an end. And I knew without a doubt that Jesus Christ was talking to me. Now, up to that point, I was a convicted killer, I was a gang member, I was a drug dealer, I was a diagnosed sociopath. He left the 99 to come and save me. And my addiction was gone. As I went from a $1,500 a day cocaine habit to not even craving at all. But I had to detox. It was coming out of my system, and I remember staying at my dad's house, and it was an awful feeling. Every day was just spent shivering under the blankets in my bed, and thinking every minute that I wasn't gonna make it to the next minute. I go see my family doctor about 6 days after I got saved, and he's looking at me. I'm 125 pounds. He's looking at the laundry list of things that are wrong with me on my medical record. I got, my liver's failing, my heart's failing, I got stomach ulcers, all kinds of crazy stuff. And he's like, I'm gonna have to send you to the emergency room. Like, we might have to take you down bring you down in the emergency room. I went back to my dad's house. I had superimposed anxiety, I had depression, I had bipolar, I had PTSD. I just had a laundry list of things wrong with my head. Everywhere I went, I'd just be clutching my stomach. My dad would take me somewhere, and I'd be dive bombing out of his moving vehicle, because of just how the amount of anxiety I had was just excruciating. And like I said, every day I'd shiver under my covers, thinking I wasn't gonna make it from one day to the next. And I remember thinking, like, okay, I knew that Jesus saved me, but I didn't know if I was a Protestant, I didn't know if I was a Catholic, I didn't know if I was some kind of witness. Like, I had no idea. Like, I just knew he saved me. I didn't know what I was or where to go. And I remember asking myself, who can I trust in this situation? So I go to the right church, and Akiana Kramerek. I'm like, what is she? And I remember Googling, and she's a Christian. I'm like, well, then I'm a Christian. And then I'm like, who do I know that's a Christian? And turns out my uncle's a Christian. I'm like, okay, so that means he can be trusted. So I'm like, what church does he go to when he's in town? And he goes to the Black Diamond Gospel Chapel, so I go there, and I remember my first day in church, first time in church, and I come running in, and I go run into the front pew, front and center, and sit down and just shaking, holding my midsection, just rocking back and forth. And the pastor's like, stops what he's doing, kind of. It's like looking at me. It's kind of, hadn't seen a lot of this before, I guess. And then he keeps going. As soon as service is over, I get up and I book it out, and he chases me down. And when he chases me down, he grabs me and he puts the Bible in my hands. And when he put that in my hands, I knew that everything written in this book was as good as gold. Anything written in this book, this is written, you know, that God wrote this book, and that, you know, that everything in here is perfect. And I took it home, and I remember shivering under my covers, and I started just leafing through it. And as I'm leafing through it, I'm understanding it, and God just really opened up my heart and started speaking to me through the Bible. And as the days turned into months, my head started to clear, started to get better. I leaned on God harder and harder, and then you know, he put it on my heart to start writing a book. So I started writing a book, and you know, I have no typing skills, so I'd be under my blankets, finger pecking my way to victory. reading my Bible, start typing a bit, and slowly but surely I started to get that done. I said yes, and then he asked me to get baptized. You know, that got put in front of me. I said yes. My pastors asked me if I'd be interested in going to Bible college. I was like, well, yes, you know, and I just kept saying yes to these. God just kept putting things in front of me. He put a guy in front of me. It's my first time trying to help somebody. This guy was a meth addict, and he's, you know, hiding in his attic, thinking the cops are raiding, living in psychosis, kind of like me. And he comes over to my house for a detox, and he's talking about, he wants me to meet his drug dealer and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, oh, why would you put this guy in my life, God? This is a horrible first one. And then 6 days after he shows up at my house, in a split transforming moment, darkness turned to light while he was breaking one day. And just like me, I thought maybe I was special. Nope. No, I'm not special at all. He wants all of his lost sheep, man. And yeah, man, that guy's sober today. And I remember when that happened, something happened inside my heart. I wanted to, you know, I'm like, you know, if that means God was showing me with him that he wants all of his lost sheep. I'm like, how can I show everyone how good this works? How good Jesus works? I can't believe everybody doesn't know about Jesus. And so I decided to go down to East Hastings over Christmas. And I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what to do. Like, I remember when God put East Hastings on my heart, I was thinking, you know, like, can't we start with the mustard seed or something? Yeah, nope. And I went down to East Hastings. I had 400 Bibles. I raised $7,000. Nobody was coming with me. It was over Christmas, so I haven't been at home with my family in Christmas in years. But that's just where God asked me to go, and I said yes. And you know what? And I really reeled in what I was capable of doing. I'm not capable of doing anything. All I'm capable of doing is planting seeds. I can't save anybody. It's all God. It's all by what He did. You know, so I go out and so I just started going out, handing out Bibles, sitting with people, man. Jesus was the greatest evangelist in the world. And what he did is he washed the feet of his disciples. If anyone was in a position of power and authority to say, you need to listen to me, it was him. And that's not what he did. He served everybody. You know what I mean? And that's what I did when I was down there. And God was just working magic down there. I ended up, the guy that I met, the very first guy I met, ended up coming with me out of there. He's sober today. You know, just like living this brand new life. He was homeless on Hastings for 2 years with a heroin and meth addiction. And yeah, and you know, and the guy's sober today. Jesus is the answer. Jesus works. And I've just kept saying yes when he puts something in front of me. And I don't know what the future looks like for me. Right now I work at Teen Challenge in the Okanagan, and I got hired there because I'm an evangelist. Today I don't have that emptiness that I had for so many years that I was just trying to fill up with women, with substance. My identity is completely wrapped up in who Jesus created me to be. My identity is completely wrapped up in Him. And I am filled to the brim with freedom, with happiness, with joy, with peace. And I have never experienced that before in my life, before Jesus. And He's knocking on all of our hearts, man.